Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning for many of you who are on the African continent. I'm Paul Jeffries. I'm currently in Mauritius, so we're 2 p.m. this afternoon. And welcome to our webinar in conjunction with Latitude, who are our residency and citizenship experts this afternoon. And we're here to talk about how to become a multinational, how to obtain second residency and citizenship. And I think it's a very topical conversation to have. I was reading something only yesterday that was talking about the entire industry should top by the end of 2023, 100 billion. So I'll be interested to hear what my panelists think of that. But look, I don't want to take too much longer with the introduction. I'd rather us get right into the deep dive conversations. So I have Chris Willis with me, I have Dom Barnes with me, who are both experts in this space with tons and tons of experience, having lived in Africa themselves and running businesses, helping people in this manner for many, many years. So I'd like to, without further ado, just hand straight over, if you don't mind. And I think Chris is going to start this afternoon, and then Dom will do an intro, and then nearer the end we'll come back for questions and answers. Good afternoon, gents.
Yes, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you, Paul, for the kind words, and pleasure to be with everybody today. My name is Chris Willis. I'm one of the founders and directors of Latitude, Residency and Citizenship, and we focus primarily on private client services to obtain residence and citizenship through investment. We're also involved in government advisory, whereby we work with governments to help them either refine their existing program or build new programs from scratch. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a sec. For myself, I've been a practitioner for 26 years, currently represent another, if you like, our industry regulator called the Investment Migration Council. I represent their interests in the Caribbean. And you know, I'm a frequent visitor to Africa. I lived in Guinea in West Africa for 6 years, and so very familiar with the push factors and the needs of why Africans are looking for second residence or citizenship. So that's my brief intro. I'll hand over to Dom to give his intro, and then I'll go through a few more facts about our firm and the industry. Over to you, Dom.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending. So I'm based out of the London office, Latitude UK, and I have been developing most certainly the West African market for 4 to 5 years. Majority of my client base being in Nigeria, helping with what we call this investment migration space, which becomes more and more valuable and some say needed year on year. So we're going to be taking you through our presentation today, mainly focusing on citizenship by investment as opposed to residency. I'll explain, you know, the key differences later on in the slides. But yeah, I'll hand you back to Chris to take you through the start, and then I'll take over from there. So back to you, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you, Dom. And so if you could control a few more slides for us, just to go down a couple, and then we can go over some of the key talking points. And certainly, as Dom said, we're going to focus, you know, the needs for Africans. You know, we've spoken about the strength of some of the African passports are not the best, you know, to put it politely. And so having the additional mobility and benefits that go with having a second citizenship, you know, can be a game changer for many people. So looking at the boxes here, you see the first one, you know, we do the main core of our business is private client services. So this is where we'll sit with a client, understand their needs, their motivation, their timescales, their budget, and then we can make some recommendations on what programs, you know, we're going to work best for them and be the best solution for them and their family. You know, and one of the things that certainly came out of the pandemic was that many people who were used to travel weren't able to travel and, you know, found that very difficult. You know, an example in Nigeria, many wealthy Nigerians, you know, have their healthcare taken care of either in the UK or in Switzerland. And so, you know, with the travel ban, they realized they can't get to the UK or to Switzerland. So they were reliant on their local health services. And that was a big wake-up call for many people who were like, look, I need to have this mobility. So if I have to be spontaneous and I have to travel, I can't always do that on my Nigerian passport. And for our friends in South Africa, we know the Green Mamba is not the strongest travel document in the world. So, it's giving additional mobility. And if anything, it's enhancing your freedoms to be able to travel and have access to the world. And the pandemic really was a big wake-up call for a lot of people, seeing that they need to have more options, because obviously the more options you have, the better prepared you're going to be. So that's been a huge amount of our work is on the private client side. Now, the Investment Migration Council, the top middle box there. So this is our de facto regulator, if you like. So the mandate behind it, it's a non-profit out of Geneva that promotes code of ethics, best practices, etc., for practitioners, for developers, for governments, to ensure proper due diligence is met. They're also involved in providing an education program where you can get a certificate in investment migration, which has been taken up by many practitioners as well as government staff members, who are involved in this space. And then the lobbying side is very important. Our CEO is often in Brussels lobbying with the European Commission, and that's the sort of the unseen work that they're doing to keep flying the flag for the industry. The government advisory, I touched on, and there's a small slide on that afterward, which will show you what we do. And as I said, this is working directly with governments, so we understand, what happens on the other side of the fence. And in many cases, we actually built the operation manuals, for these governments, so we understand what happens to a file once, you drop it off at the reception desk, or the FedEx arrives at the reception desk. Where does it go? What happens to it? And what are the expected outcomes? So we've been very involved in that side. As a firm, as I mentioned, I've been doing this 26 years, thousands of happy clients. Our executive board has over 100 years of collective experience as well, and we've been going for over 10 years. Further on from an expansion we had in the Middle East, where we acquired our key partners, Rift Trust, who are also very active in what we're doing globally. And if you could go to the next slide, Dom, please. You'll see here in terms of our global presence, we just recently opened in Morocco and in Cairo in Egypt to complement our operations that we already have in Nigeria and in South Africa. So we have a decent footprint in Africa, and we certainly see Africa as a very important market for us in terms of growth, for some of the push factors that we spoke about earlier in terms of why it's important for Africans to have a second option. It's important for us as well, not only to have a strong presence in source markets, but also in the destination markets. So, in the Caribbean, where we have a lot of activity in terms of people going in, I'm based there in the Cayman Islands, and I take care of all the operations around the 5 citizenship by investment programs in the Caribbean, as well as the residence programs in Cayman and in Anguilla. So, and then, places like Malta, which is a very important market for us in terms of allowing people to get European citizenship relatively quickly, there's a need to spend some time in Malta. So we have that office that deals very much with the on-island support for people who are coming in, because, if you have to find a property, get a driver's license, do all these things, it's very important that you have that on-the-ground support. So next slide, Don, please. So I'm going to talk about the government advisory, so you get a sense of what we've been doing. So in terms of the experience from myself and my colleagues, we'll just go back one slide. You'll see that we've been involved, going back to the origin of this industry, which really started in Canada, when Canada had its immigrant investor program. And that was where, if you look at the players in this industry, many people are actually coming from Canada. So you can see back in 2002, very involved in dealing with the immigrant investor program. United Kingdom, Antigua was very important because they were, if you like, the second one to come out of the Caribbean. St. Kitts and Nevis was the first one, and they sort of set the framework for the others to follow. And Antigua was really the second one that got involved. Malta, as I mentioned, my colleague Eric Major, who's our CEO, was very active in putting that together and ensuring that it was the only European Community Commission, sanctioned citizenship by investment program. So that was a bit of a game changer, in terms of the industry, allowing for European Union citizenship in about 18 months. Grenada, I lived in Grenada for a year, and while I was there, I was tasked with helping to restructure their unit and their program, and that's been extremely successful. And then we recently won this public service concession in Anguilla, which was to set up 2 residence programs from scratch. So everything from the legislation to the operation manuals to setting up the agency, job descriptions, everything from A to Z. So that was a great experience and really, you know, transformative for a small island nation such as Anguilla. And we've got others that we're speaking with at the moment, so there could be some interesting announcements in 2023. So this is an area I do a lot of focus on, and you know, very important for us as a firm to maintain our status within the industry as being one of the go-to people, not only for private client, but also understanding what's happening in the industry and what's happening, you know, with the governments. Okay, Dom, over to you for the next phase. Yep, that's a brief introduction of us and our firm, and I'll let Dom take you through some more of the nitty-gritty.
Great, thank you, Chris. So now if we jump into what I'll do is on this slide coming up, you'll see the 3 main propositions which investment migration encompasses. So investment migration, you know, to reiterate, is quite a niche form of immigration. Okay, so you know, we don't specialize or facilitate any non-investment visas like student visas, work visas. It is all specifically investment based. Okay, so going back to my intro before, citizenship by investment has become a very popular service offering for the West African market. We have an office on Victoria Island in Nigeria, which I try to visit as frequently as I can. You know, there's airline issues at the moment, there's all kind of issues going on. So suffice it to say, we have a good presence there, and we are expanding, you know, through Africa with also the help of Carrick. So this slide's important because, you know, from a very early inquiry, a lot of people won't necessarily know the difference between residency and citizenship. Okay, so residency by investment, I'll just sort of explain, you know, a sort of a high-level overview. You're essentially acquiring status in another country. Okay, so typically you're a temporary resident, and then you become a permanent resident, and then after doing enough time, you can graduate to becoming a citizen. Okay, so you're not automatically getting a citizenship certificate or a passport. You're getting a residency status, which is usually, you know, a residence card. Okay, so this card can give you access to travel destinations like the Schengen area. Okay, the 26 countries in Europe, but it's very different from citizenship. Okay, so residency and citizenship. Citizenship by investment is, as it sounds, you're quite literally acquiring a citizenship against an investment. Okay, so the reason that this service offering has become so popular in countries like Ghana, in countries like Nigeria, is because there is there's a real need for West African nationals to acquire a second citizenship, therefore a second passport, so that they can access more of the world. Okay, you're talking UK, Europe, Hong Kong, Singapore, but also now we're seeing there is more of a need for a plan B. Okay, so sorry, let me just can everyone still hear me okay? It's just coming out, yeah. So you have more now of a plan B situation. So we're now seeing West Africans thinking, you know, it's getting a little bit dicey where we are. We need to have a potential plan B that we can use, even more so than just, you know, picking up my bags and traveling visa free. It's now actually, you know, an insurance policy, which is becoming, you know, very, very important for a lot of nations. And West Africa is really year on year becoming more and more sort of inquiring more and more about this. Tax residency is actually not really a main proposition. It's, you know, you've got to be tax resident somewhere. So we do have a, you know, a small contingent who will inquire about this, but the main proposition is citizenship by investment. Let's have a go down here. It's just a bit of a delay on the slides here, so I'll just be scrolling through. Okay, so if we look at what are the motivations, okay, so we have this acronym SMILE. So security, mobility, investment, lifestyle and health, and education. So like I said, for the West African market, with my experience, it's really West African nationals needing this increased mobility, okay? And to be specific, with this mobility play, you're not able to live in these countries, okay? So the country that you invest in, the country that you are acquiring citizenship from, you can obviously live in. But the other 140, 157 countries, you are getting visa-free access. So typically in the UK, you can spend 6 months a year in the UK. With Europe, 90 days in a 180-day period. So it's really about, putting down your Nigerian or your Ghanaian passport, picking up an alternative passport, which gives you this global access. So, very important for business opportunities, or even just, simple leisure and travel. We look at this acronym as well, and we look at security. So security was what I was alluding to now, which is becoming more and more popular and more of a driver. We see at the moment, certainly in Nigeria and Ghana, where we have sort of crippling currencies. You have soaring commodity prices. Real sort of push factors, which are making nationals think, I need a plan B. Okay, so it's kind of a double-edged sword, because there are these push factors that are making, for example, Nigerians think about the need for a second citizenship. But obviously, because of these factors, the financials are being hit. Okay, so it's becoming harder to actually spend 100, 200,000. But we're still seeing that the desire and need for having this plan B is so important that people are making this, this very life-changing investment. And if I go through that, what I'll do is I'll show you, because a key question is, well, how do I invest, right? What are my options in these countries? So I'll take you through to the next slide. Sorry, again, this is a bit of a delay. Okay, so the main propositions that we have are 5 in the Caribbean. Okay, so you have these 5 countries that host these citizenship by investment programs. Typically, you see there you have 4 sort of typical options that you have to make an investment. Let's say there's a donation and there's a government-approved real estate investment. They're the most popular. That's what most clients will be going for. And the choice comes down to, it's usually budget. Okay, so for example, if you're donating to a government, which goes to a sovereign wealth fund, the total cost compared to an investment, a government-approved real estate investment, is going to be lower. Okay, so I would say 95% of my clients, certainly from Nigeria, are opting for the donation option. Why is this? Well, it's a price-conscious market. We have foreign exchange issues now. Naira to US is becoming the rate is just increasing month on month. So from my experience, it still is donation wins in terms of the investment or the option selected. Okay, to give you some sort of total cost figures in US, you're looking anywhere from a single applicant, so someone applying on their own, okay, without family members, you're looking at about 125,000 US. So that's donation, and that is all of the government's fees, our fee, okay, versus, let's say, family of 4. A very typical family size would be mum, dad, and 2 kids. Okay, donation, again, you're looking at anywhere from 145 to 165,000 total. Okay, so that's donation plus all fees. But then I do have clients who say, it doesn't really sit well with me just giving, parting with all my capital. I would like the option to invest into an asset, have the option to recoup that asset. Typically, there's a 5-year, as it says, the holding period. So what does a government-approved investment look like? It looks like a shareholding in a 5-star resort in one of these countries. Okay, so the government will say you have to invest, let's say, 220,000 into this shareholding. You cannot touch this shareholding for 5 years. After 5 years, you have the option to sell it to another CBI, citizenship by investment applicant, or you can hold it indefinitely, right? So it's completely up to the investor. There's also opportunity for rental yield, because obviously you're a shareholder in a hotel. Therefore, these hotels are generating revenue from tourism, and tourism is a major sector for these small Caribbean islands. So you're looking at sort of 2-5% per annum once the hotel is constructed as a shareholder. So there is a small sort of market for that. Like I said, it typically is still the donation because of the price consciousness and the sensitivity now with currency issues in these African markets. But this is always something we speak about in the initial consultation. What is your budget? What's your investment ethos? Some people say, no, like, I don't want to give away all my capital. It needs to be an investment. So we have these conversations very early on, and then we drive the inquiry to selecting, the best option. Just skip through a couple of these now. Okay, so this is another good sort of graphic of really determining or outlining what is the difference between all these different stages of temporary, permanent, citizenship, EU citizenship. So just quickly there, because the main proposition we're talking about is citizenship by investment as opposed to residency. I'll just quickly fire through this to give you just an overview of what is this hierarchy of immigration status. So temporary residence, as you can see there, it's a visa, that gives you temporary status in a country. Okay, so for example, in the UK, with the inbound residency by investment product that we have, you become a temporary resident for 3 years. What can you do as a temporary resident? Well, you can live, work, study in the UK, but you're temporary, meaning you're going to have to keep renewing that temporary status, okay, before you become a permanent resident. So with Portugal, for example, with Portugal's temporary residency card that you keep renewing over a 5-year period, not only do you have status in that country, live, work, study, but you also have a travel document, technically, because it's a Schengen visa. So as a West African national, you have this visa that gets you through, this visa card gets you through the Schengen zone in Europe, 26 countries. Next, you have permanent residency. This is where you've graduated from temporary status to permanent. And really all this means is you've got the same status in terms of what you can do in that country. The difference is there's no renewal on the status, right? So for example, in Portugal, after 5 years, you can actually apply for citizenship, but let's say you did permanent residency, there's no need to renew the status. A bit like a driving license or a passport, you will have an expiry time on that document, 5 years usually, but your status is now permanent. Same in the UK, 3 years, you can graduate to PR in year 4. Citizenship, as I explained before, is the next level up because you're a citizen of that country, okay? You have therefore a travel document, which is your passport. So for example, like I said, with the 5 countries in the Caribbean, you have a passport from one of those countries, and you obviously also have a citizenship certificate. EU citizenship, this is really the sort of top tier of status. Why is this? Well, because not only will you have a very powerful travel document, your passport giving you visa-free access to, let's say, 185 countries for Malta, you also have the right of settlement in any of the 27 EU member states. So this is why it's considered more powerful than, let's say, citizenship from Antigua or St. Kitts or St. Lucia, because not only do you have settlement rights in your country that you got the citizenship from, you also have that throughout the 27 member states, just like a UK national did pre-Brexit. So a very powerful proposition, which comes with a high cost. Malta's citizenship iteration, you're looking at best part of $1 million, which majority is actually donation. So yeah, a very small percentage of clients will consume that or choose that, but it's just important to show you the sort of hierarchy of that. Let's flick through here. Let me just go to a couple of other slides. Okay, we'll skip over those because, like I said, it's really a citizenship by investment play here we're talking about. So it's just still a bit of a delay whilst I'm scrolling through. Okay. Still scrolling through. Bear with me. Okay. Couple more. Okay, so this is an important slide because this whole investment migration industry is now becoming a bolt-on, to wealth management or financial planning, which is why we partnered with Carrick, because when you're talking about diversifying your residency or diversifying your citizenship, it's also in the same conversation of I'd like to diversify my investments, my real estate portfolio. So certainly in the last 18 months, financial advisors are hearing more and more from their client base. My client has mentioned they need a second residency now to hedge against whatever's going on in their own country, or they need a second citizenship now for the same reason. So, this is why we've now partnered with Carrick to offer or give the opportunity for our client base to avail themselves of these very important financial planning services, offshore investment solutions, asset protection through trusts offshore, pension solutions, foreign exchange solutions, fiduciary duties. So all of these, which were probably considered ancillary services, are really integral to the financial planning for high net worths and ultra high net worths now. So yeah, we're very well positioned to not only offer the investment migration side, but through Carrick, the list of services has been expanded through our partnership. Let me maybe take you through what a typical process looks like. So it's the job of an advisor, sales advisor, consultant to really help the inquiry or the inquirer navigate this, what can be seen as a bit of a minefield, right? Because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of different reasons why you choose one country over the other. You need to be aware of what all the investment options are, what all the pricings are. So a lot of the time you'll have an inquiry that comes in and they say, I want St. Kitts and Nevis. And then you say, well, let's just rewind slightly. Is the US of importance to you in the future, potential residing there? Yes. Okay, then I suggest we look at Grenada, because Grenada has this treaty with the US whereby Grenadian citizens are able to acquire residency in the US through an investment. So this is an example of when having the knowledge will kind of process of elimination help you funnel down the inquiry to the correct result. Once we've chosen, once the client, or it's actually not the client at this point, but the prospect has decided on the program, on the country, we then have an onboarding process where we have to do our due diligence on the prospective client. Once the due diligence comes back green and we can proceed, we circulate the contracts, we onboard. Let me give you a sort of top to tail of a citizenship by investment in the Caribbean file. You will then be assigned a case officer or a relationship manager. Okay, this person is responsible for hand-holding the client through the building and mounting of the file. So you will have a case officer who will send you a welcome pack. The welcome pack has a full document schedule of what needs to be collated. We have all of the government forms. We are accredited licensed agents for these programs. So our admin and legal team will be filling out all your forms for you based on information we have from you, personal data. Your job is to go away and collate the supporting documents as per the document checklist: certified copy birth certificate, police clearance, utility bill, which, like I said, are all outlined in the welcome email. Typically, an organized client will take 3 to 4 weeks. Once we have the file ready to go, we then submit this file to the Citizenship by Investment Unit, which is a body of the government tasked to review and process these files. In terms of processing time, you're looking anywhere from 4 to 7 months in terms of how long will your file be with the government for. We're noticing now, because these programs are becoming so popular, submissions are increasing, processing times are therefore increasing. So the processing time, the needle is shifting. But these CIUs are doing all they can to speed up the process. So let's say after 120 days, we have the result, which is an approval in principle from the government saying your client has been approved. Please now remit the donation or the balance of the investment. So up until that point, all that is paid is our fees and all of the government's fees. So the government has, like I said, processing fees, due diligence fees that all need to be collected before submission, because when we submit your file, we're paying the government for that work essentially. So the bulk amount of those total costs I was giving you, let's say 170,000 for a family of 4, is only paid after approval, okay? Because that's either the donation or it's the balance of the investment. Once that is made and it's cleared by the local banks in the Caribbean, we then have the certificate of registration produced, which is then used to issue the passport. So from contracting with us to you receiving your citizenship documents, which we either do in person, come to our office, wherever we are, wherever the client is based, and we hand deliver. Most of the time it's a courier service, so you'll have everything couriered directly to your door. But you're looking at around about, on average, 7 to 8 months. Obviously, there's parts of the process that we can't control. For example, how long is the client taking to give us their documents? But we can obviously control how fast we are processing, and the government, like I said, it's kind of always a shifting needle. So we always keep our eyes on developments, locally. Okay, let me just skip through a few of these now. Okay, sorry, this is going the wrong way. I'll just take you back up to try again. Okay. Yeah, sorry, it's working now. It's just been a little bit delayed. Let me go up. Simone, are you able to go to the slide which has the citizenship by investment options, the flags, and the individual countries? It just seems to be, yeah. Okay, well, it's an incorrect slide title, but these are citizenship by investment options. So if you go, sorry, down one more again to the other one. Yeah, this one. Thank you. So, like I said, the main, when I say main, most popular options that we facilitate, certainly for our African clients, are these 5 based out of the Caribbean, which you can see there: Antigua, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, and St. Lucia. Now, like I said, these jurisdictions obviously want to be competitive with one another. As you can see there, those figures is what you're paying for a donation. So Antigua, Dominica, 100,000, St. Lucia 100,000. But this is when the sort of nuances between them is raised in conversations. For example, if I'm talking to a family file, so mum, dad, 2 kids, the options that make more sense are Antigua and St. Kitts, because Antigua is 100,000 donation, and that covers a family of 4. You then, after a family of 4, typically the price increases after that 3rd dependent. Whereas if it's a main applicant applying on their own, the most cost-effective options are St. Lucia and Dominica because of the way the donation is structured. As soon as you start adding dependents, the main applicant adds dependents for Dominica and St. Lucia, the price goes up a fair amount. So all these conversations are very important. So it's not only, what is the total cost? It is, well, what does one country's passport have over the other? Because, you might have, for example, Antigua, 150 countries, let's say, visa-free travel. St. Kitts, 157. Well, the key question is, what is actually the difference in these total country lists, i.e., what does St. Kitts have over Antigua, and what does Antigua have over St. Kitts? Well, we know that Antigua, for example, is the only option in terms of the passport that has visa-free travel to South Africa, which sometimes is an important driver for a client because they have business affairs over there and they need, flexible access. So we have this country access tool on our website, whereby you select one program, one country, and the other one, and it drops down. You see the total list of the countries, but you also see what is the unique visa-free travel play between them. So it's really two main drivers. It comes down to budget. Okay, budget means, do I invest or do I donate? And it comes down to, what is my family composition? Because, like I said, that really affects which program you're going for, because of the total costs and the way they are structured, being sort of the most important drivers for each client. And obviously we run through these motivations and really, try and form a complete picture as to what a client wants and what is the best program, for them. So a little bit on processing as well. We have, you see these sort of total cost figures. You're obviously going to want to see, well, what is this total cost made of? So we have quotations which have a full breakdown of every fee. And then on the same document, you'll be sent after a consultation, you have a payment timeline, because you really have three main tranches of payments. You have payment invoice 1, which is you're retaining our services. Just like when you retain any law firm or consultancy firm, you will pay a retainer on signing the agreements. This puts our team to work, the legal and admin team. Okay, once we have your file built, invoice 2, which typically, let's say 30 to 60,000, depending on the file. Okay, like I said, this is the government's disbursements. This is the balance of our professional fees. So that is invoice 2, paid on submission. And then invoice 3 is either the donation or balance of the real estate investment. So yeah, I hope that's the idea today, was just to give you, sort of a high level overview of why people are choosing certain programs. To recap, in West Africa, it's primarily, I need more mobility globally. Okay, I don't want to rely on my current passport. I need another one. I want to get to France. I want to get to Belgium. I want to get to the UK. 157 countries around the world. Second value point is, it's now being viewed as an insurance policy. 2 is better than 1. I want to bolster myself and my family members with more options. Okay, because not only, if things get really dicey in a home country, not only do you have immediate refuge in this country you've got citizenship from, right? You can obviously, drop of a hat, go there, live there. But in theory, you also can spread out your time with the visa-free access countries, right? So 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. So it's all about, creating more flexibility, certainly from markets that are becoming quite dicey economically, politically. It's just giving, investors and their families increased opportunities in that sense. And not all of them, but, for example, St. Kitts and Nevis, once you are a citizen, if you then have children, that citizenship will also be passed down to them. So, for some clients, this sort of, planning for the future, that becomes a key talking point, for these families. And then maybe just a comment on the market from me. Like I said earlier, the sort of troubles going on in, for example, I always talk about Nigeria and Ghana, because that's where we've seen these these economic crises really spiraling at the moment, both in the inflation, soaring commodity prices, just a real scarcity of foreign exchange. Most of our clients recently who are able to sort of flip the switch and do this already hold those currencies either outside Nigeria or in a local account in Nigeria, someone like Guarantee Bank PLC, Standard Chartered, or Victoria Island, because the last 3-4 months, as many of you are aware, it's become almost impossible to actually buy US because the parallel markets rates have just been going crazy, and there's just a real lack of foreign exchange. So this is where I reference this double-edged sword. More people are thinking about this as a need over a luxury, but there's also this financial question in the back of the head of A, can I access the currency, and B, can I afford it? And we're still seeing West Africans, certainly from my experience, still commit, because they say in the long term, although this is costing me more than it did 6-7 months ago, I think it's going to get worse in terms of the rate. Some people are in that basket, so I need to act now. Some people say, I'm going to sit on my hands. I'm going to wait maybe till, after the elections, for example, in Nigeria. Let's see what happens. Let's see if there's a policy change from the bank and the rate comes down. So you really have 2 baskets, but the overall sentiment is this is very important. It's important for myself. It's important for my family. And the flexibility is very important to mention, because, like I said, with residency by investment, you are at some point going to move to that country. You're going to have to do some time in that country. Citizenship by investment from these 5 countries in the Caribbean, another reason why they're so popular with African countries, there is no need to leave your country of residence throughout the process. It's done all remotely by us, okay, and our counterparts in the host country. So many clients are very well established in business in their home country. They can't just uproot and leave, and they certainly won't be doing that in a recession. People usually will not, like any investment, you don't pull your investment out at a loss, right, in a down market. So just to reiterate, these programs, you do not have to leave your country of residence to do them. They're all done via us, remotely or on the ground, for example, if we've got an office in Lagos. So it's really about staying in my home country, but giving myself and my family more options. If we just quickly, Simone, can we just go down to the last slide, and we'll leave some time for Q&A. I just want to emphasize the executive team, because it's always something that's very important, when looking at the industry. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, it's quite difficult with the delay because you flick it in. So this is the executive team. So the reason that I highlight this is because the industry is becoming more and more saturated with smaller players who are trying to get into this business. So it's very important when choosing a service provider, you look at the caliber of the team, right? So Eric Major, a pioneer of the industry, started in the 90s, where investment migration arguably was born in Canada through the Residency by Investment program there. 25 years plus experience of leading teams and companies in this space. Mamoon and David head up our MENA region, really, so Dubai, and like Chris was saying, expanding into Morocco and Egypt. So arguably the largest service provider in MENA in terms of volume of clients we do yearly. If I was to say 500-600 clients a year that we do as a group. So those 2 gentlemen are responsible for that. Chris Willis, again, another Canadian, as Eric Major is, been doing it for 15-20 years. Actually a qualified immigration lawyer himself in Canada. So again, a vast experience, vast networks that we can rely on. John Green, who's in our Vancouver office, again Canadian, been doing it for many years. And we have Ryan there, who heads up our Malta office, which is a very important proposition, a key program that Chris said, Eric was involved with setting up the first iteration. So, I mean, yeah, it speaks volumes. That's just our executive team. We have around 80 to 100 staff, including our important admin team who support us with all of our clients. Yeah, just thought it's very important to highlight that, because it's one of the only truly global investment migration groups that have these kind of caliber of colleagues. Great, Paul. Shall I hand it back for a Q&A?
Dominic, that was enthralling. Thank you very much. Such a lot of detail in there. I've got tons of questions myself. And thank you, Chris, for your early introduction. Very, very intriguing. I do hope everyone that's listening in has found that of deep interest. And obviously, if you are particularly focused on the topic that we're talking about, then it'll be great to pick up with you again at a later stage to go through anything in more depth. But if I could perhaps just intervene with some questions. There was a question, and do apologize if I get the name wrong. My African pronunciation still needs a lot of work, but Bankole, I think. I know you said you'd joined a little bit late, but you wanted a bit more information on the countries that Dom and Chris can help with. And at the same time, you asked, do you have options focused very much on the opportunities in the US and Canada? If I can perhaps start off with that, Dom and Chris.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, so Canada is very popular in terms of, we get a lot of inquiries for Canada from West Africa. Yeah, it's normally comes down to citizenship by investment conversation, because you don't explain that you are going to be relocating to Canada, you're going to be actively involved in a startup company, and then what I found, the conversation actually then veers back to I want a second citizenship. But Chris, obviously being Canadian, just in conclusion, we do facilitate Canada, Chris, and through our Vancouver and Toronto presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Canada is, as Dom rightly says, it's a residence program. It doesn't have a citizenship program. So you are going to need to physically move to Canada, spend 2 years out of 5 to maintain your residency. And then ultimately, if you spend enough time, you can graduate to full Canadian citizenship, after 5 or so years. So it is a different proposition. Right now, the Canadian program is very much job orientated. So they'd like to see that you have an offer of employment to support, your age, your qualifications, your work experience and such. So Canada is very competitive to get into right now, but it is a residence program. As it relates to the United States, the EB-5 is sort of back, if you like. It had a bit of a period of being challenged in the courts if it was going to keep going, if the investment levels were going to change. But it's still an option. But there are some delays, of course, in the United States to qualify for the EB-5. The E2 is also an option for those who are looking to set up business. What a lot of people like about the E2 is that it's a non-immigrant visa, which means it's a temporary visa. So it's not a green card, and it doesn't give you a pathway to citizenship unless you upgrade to, let's say, an EB-5, for example. The reason this is important is that in the United States, you're taxed on your citizenship, and that includes having green card status. So we have clients who say, look, I'll do the E2 so I can still have temporary status in the US. I can sort of come and go, my kids can go to school, but I'm not having to, I'm not taxed on my worldwide income. I'm only taxed on the income I generate in the United States. So for people who have operations outside of the US, this can also be quite attractive. So, like we were saying right at the beginning, it's very important for Dom and I to have a chat and understand your needs and motivations, and then we can make some suggestions. And as Dom says, it may start with Canada and end up with citizenship elsewhere. So that's a big part of what we do, so we can better understand you and your needs and then come up with the right solution.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Chris. That thorough. Can I ask you guys, are there any African nations that you can't help, nationalities, sorry, you can't help?
No, in terms of, from my knowledge, pretty much all of them are allowed dual nationality. There's no sort of individual ban on African countries that I know of. It usually comes down to very case-by-case scenarios. For example, can that client actually access the documents we need? Certified copy of birth certificate, police clearance. For example, I had a couple of prospects in Cameroon, and it was just a banking issue. They were allowed to as nationals, but it was more of a practical issue where they quite literally, because of the capital, similar to South Africa, capital constraints, all these things we have to work around in certain markets. But no, from my knowledge, thinking of each individual program, there's no nationality bans from African countries that I know of. It's more of a case by case, sourcing documents and the financials that could prevent one of these nationals from submitting, because it's very thorough due diligence. We do our first, step one, which is using a couple of DD provider platforms. But obviously, when we submit these files, the level of DD is very stringent. So we have to be very clear with clients that you're going to have to show what is your source of wealth, how did you accumulate this wealth, 12-month bank statements, complete transparency, which sometimes can be difficult for these certainly smaller African nations.
Absolutely, very, very good. And in terms of your scope, obviously we're very much focused on Africa, and I'm sure Africa includes all the islands such as Mauritius, where I'm sat, from that point of view. But are you helping many nationals from other areas, China, Far East, Middle East?
Yeah, Chris, you could probably comment on the development.
Yeah, we've seen a huge upsurge from the United States. Actually, that's become one of our most important source markets, or applicants from the US. And then, as Dom mentioned earlier, our team in Dubai is very active dealing with Middle East, North Africa as well. China's, Middle East and Far East has been asleep really for the last couple of years and just starting to wake up now. So we're seeing a little bit more of a level of interest from that region. But without a doubt, Africa has been extremely important to us. Hence why we have 4 offices at the moment and looking to expand further, because we just see that as very much a growth market for us. And all the push factors typically associated with people applying for these programs are present in Africa. And so it just provides a great solution for people who are, let's not it's not for everybody. It's for the highest the highest wealth of these countries. These privileged people can do it, and so it's not a mainstream proposition for the mass affluent that Dom was saying. We're not doing work permits, we're not doing job search, we're not doing skilled workers. We're focusing on investors. So we are focusing on the high net worth, ultra high net worth individual who wants to enhance their freedoms and have more options. So more tools in the toolbox so they can get the job done and make sure that they and their families are well protected going forward.
Yeah, fantastic. I do have a couple more questions. Emmanuel, he says, could you kindly reconfirm the cost of investment by citizenship in the Caribbean countries? I note you mentioned the tenor being 5 years. However, could you kindly provide more information about such investments?
Yeah, give you a couple of examples. So the sort of intricacies of the costs we discussed, because they're very case by case. For example, it depends on the size of the family, depends on the ages of the dependents. For example, when your child is over the age of 16, some countries will then charge a due diligence fee. So these conversations are very nuanced because of the family dynamic and the family composition. But as I was saying, to give you some ballpark figures, again, donation, one person applying, main applicant on his or her own. Most cost-effective option, you're looking about 125, 126,000. Okay, that's total with a donation. Family of 4, mum, dad, 2 kids, let's say two minors, right? You're looking at about 165, 170,000. Okay, via donation. If we then compare that to a real estate investment, which you're going to have to spend at least 220,000, for example, in Grenada on the investment, plus fees, family of 4, you're looking in the 300,000 mark, 350,000. Obviously 220 of which, you'd hopefully recoup most of that after your holding period expires, and also get a bit of rental income from that each year. So yeah, like I said, the most popular decision in terms of the program and the investment is donation, because of the price consciousness, you know, this price sensitivity in these markets where the local currency doesn't really get you very far, you know, when you're converting to euros or USD. So yeah, to recap: 125, 126 single, and 165, 170 family of 4 donation. Real estate investment, you're looking 300,000 plus, family of 4.
Interestingly, there's another question here from Peter Ogo. I think he's touching on a very similar section. Please recap on the Grenada Citizenship by Investment program again, and how you can use that to get US residency.
So I'll take that. So Grenada's in a very privileged position in so far as that it's one of the very few countries that has a citizenship by investment program, but is also a treaty country with the United States as it relates to the E2 visa. So what that means is that in order to apply for an E2, you have to be a citizen of a treaty country. So for example, South Africa is not a treaty country. Pakistan is not a treaty country. Brazil is not a treaty country. So some of these big countries don't have that agreement with the United States. So if they say, look, I really want to do the E2, but I'm not a citizen of a treaty country, what do I do? So the solution is make yourself a citizen of a treaty country, right? So they can do an economic citizenship application to Grenada within, you know, 3 to 5 months. They have that, and then they can file for the US E2. And very often what happens is that we're doing this in conjunction with the US immigration attorneys, so that they're building a parallel file at the same time, so that you minimize the time delay from acquiring your Grenadian citizenship to applying for your E2 to the United States. And so, and the process for the E2 is relatively quick because it is a temporary visa, right? It's a renewable one. And then you, as long as you maintain your business interest, ideally you're investing, you know, 200,000 US or more. Many people use a franchise option because it's just turnkey, right? And they can use the structure of the franchise to qualify for the E2. Some people will decide that they want to partner with, let's say, with a family member or a friend, and others want to do something from scratch, which obviously is the highest risk one. So that's why people like the convenience of the franchise. So it's definitely an option if it's what you want to do. We would have to have a more detailed consultation and bring in our US counsel as well to find the right solution for you. But that sort of combo deal of doing Grenada to support an E2 is very popular. It's been very popular with Brazilians in particular, because people from Brazil, you know, always want to get to the United States and they like the E2 option, but they have to first make themselves a citizen of a treaty country, which is where Grenada comes into play.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, you know, any requests for private consultations will be fielded through Carrick, and then they'll obviously bring us in to set up a time and a date to discuss this in greater detail and see which program is suitable for any inquiries, you know, from this webinar. So we will host private consultations to answer these questions in detail.
I think actually that leads me nicely to the end of the question and answer, but I think very important to say, you know, it is a very complex subject matter that we're talking about. It needs detailed consultation, both at the Carrick and the Latitude level, because you know, we would help a lot with the information gathering, and obviously Dom and Chris and their team are the professionals at that end. So we'd be the general practitioners, they'd be the specialists. And you know, I think, gentlemen, I'd really like to thank you this afternoon. Super professional presentation. I've learned a lot myself. I hope all the audience have felt that of super value. On behalf of myself and Carrick, thank you very much for delivering the presentation today. You know, very good, and I look forward to the next one.
Right.
All attendees, thank you very much for attending this afternoon. A pleasure to have you on the webinar. I do hope the information has been of a level of education that's helpful, and value add is always our key driver. So I think we'd all like to thank you for coming on the webinar this afternoon. And my team in particular in Mauritius and the wider Carrick group will certainly be in contact with everybody that's registered or indeed attended today. Those that haven't attended will get a copy of the slides and the presentation this afternoon. And we look forward to communicating with all of you on a one-to-one basis to see if we can answer any further questions or help you any further on indeed this subject or any other matter that you feel that we could be useful. So thank you very much this afternoon. If you're happy with that, gentlemen, I think we can call the webinar to a close.
Brilliant. Thank you again, Paul and Carrick, and thank you for attending, everyone. And we look forward to consulting you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.